when I discovered your work, I was reading Direct Truth, and I felt a lot of what I was reading in my bones. Like it was different than before. After that, I had a experience of really heightened clarity that lasted about 5 days. Since then, that clarity's decreased quite a bit, and I feel that my devotion to truth is sincere. Yet I feel this unknowing or like insecurity since that clarity that I guess had the ability to see has dwindled since that time. And I can see that I had this belief that, there are some moments of clarity that are enough to dissolve that conditioning, of the self, or I guess leave it at conditioning. So my question is, does clarity like kind of come and go as one's sincerity matures, or?
Yeah, the more that one's sincerity matures, the more they move towards clarity. But what must be understood is that if one comes to a pure or clean river, and then after that they jump right back into the mud pit, then they're going to get dirty again. So the human being's default state is to live in society. And while it isn't just the living in society, because one can live in society and absolutely seek the truth, but it just so happens that human beings don't just live in society, they inculcate and they imbibe and they believe and they value society. And therefore, that exposure begins to take them back towards that realm. So therefore, whatever things that they've experienced before, given their brief exposure to truth, tends to be washed away because of the re-exposure to all of the lies. Society is nothing but lies, and that's what must be understood eventually at some point, by a given human being, if they genuinely seek the truth. That must come into their viscera somehow, in some fashion, through some means, through some vehicle, and it must come to stay. And until that happens, the reconditioning and the return to the default societal state is going to be the order of the day.
Okay. Do you mind if I ask one more question?
Okay.
I like what you say as far as kind of reconditioned there. I wanted to use the words that aren't really accurate, but say or ask, is it kind of painful to go back to that? But painful is not the word. It's just, I do not want to, I don't know. I don't know exactly how to word it. I'm sorry.
Well, there have been clients who have told me that they'd rather die than go back.
Yes.
Once a human being tastes truth in any field, and whoever they may be, then all else pales in comparison. As long as it was a deep felt communion with the truth, and even if it was brief, everything else in an instant becomes black and white, as opposed to that color. So that tends to be a very common sentiment for those who tend to read, I guess, something that I wrote, and I don't like saying that, but I almost feel like apologizing for that. But that is the experiences that I've had from the feedback that I have received from human beings who have read or heard what I have spoken, and it has done that sort of thing to them, which led them to say, for whatever reason, not that they should, that they would rather die than go back to the old way of living and to the societal ways. And that isn't a good thing or a bad thing. That just happens to be what people say.
How does one like stop having like expectations, right? Because in society with the prescriptions,
there's no how to stop doing something. Like there's no, I can't tell you go do 17 jumping jacks and 4 somersaults and you'll stop having expectations. There's no how to. There's how do you raise your eyebrows? I mean, there's no how to. How to is a totally false and anemic societal concept which has no merit. It is valueless. It is a scam and a sham. It is completely superficial and cosmetic. Therefore, if one finds themselves having expectations and the expectation is bringing them pain, then they will naturally move towards stopping having expectations if the pain is sufficient enough. All things happen by themselves.